Hey everyone, welcome back to Winenance Wednesday. This is our weekly financial independence live stream show and podcast where we talk about all the ways that we can transform our lives through our finances. And we do that by learning how to spend our money more intentionally, learning how to grow wealth and invest, and of course, living more fulfilling lives, living more intentionally. We are your hosts and personal finance educators, Stephanie and Marie. We are also two sisters on the path to financial independence. And if you are new to us or to our channel, we'd love it if you would go ahead and click like and subscribe. That'll help new people find our channel and find our content about financial independence and personal finance. We have a bit of a different episode for you today, this week. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys know, but there's, some stuff going on in the world.
Little things are happening, a little thing happened yesterday.
Yeah, this little election thing. So we thought it would be a good idea to, not pretend that the elephant in the room is not happening, not pretend that we're not obviously a political show and we don't really talk about politics, but politics and policy does impact our lives. It does impact our finances. And so, we thought it would be a good idea to talk about, well, what are the implications of the election on our personal finances, on our investments and things like that. So Stephanie and I are going to do an episode about that tonight. And if you are joining us live, would love for you to join in the conversation. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts about what's going on and maybe some of those implications, we invite you to join in the chat. We do ask, that we are talking about politics. And of course, this can be a very heated conversation. We just ask that everybody, be respectful of one another. We might have differing point of views, but we do want to kind of keep this sort of an elevated conversation, if you will.
Yeah. And, the thing that I've noticed a lot that people have been asking, particularly leading up to the election, is, should they keep investing? Should they hold on to the money they have now that they had planned to invest? Should they wait till after? Should they just keep, steady on the path? And I think that's another important topic to discuss. So that's one of the other things that we're going to discuss this evening is basically what's your path forward as an investor? Should you be holding on to your money or should you remain calm and steady and keep forward on your plan? Here's a hint. Yes, keep going, go with your plan. But that's the thing. And I think it's important to discuss that because sometimes people just need to hear it. They need to hear that it's going to be okay in the long run. Granted, none of us have a crystal ball. We can't say exactly what will or won't happen in the future. But I think it's important to discuss these topics to, even if the answer seems obvious, still bring it up because that's the thing is sometimes people just need to hear that information. So obviously we have no, like I said, crystal ball for what is going to happen in the next couple of days or weeks or months or whatnot. But certainly we can talk about what our strategies are going to be, and hopefully, it resonates with you, and you'll be able to apply some of this information to your own situation.
Yep. That's right. And for those of you who have either been with us for a while or who may be new to Winenance, Stephanie and I, we started doing Winenance nights. Of course, they weren't called that back then, but, it was actually 4 years ago, we started doing these Winenance nights. And it was out of a response to the election. A lot was going on and, Donald Trump had just been inaugurated and we were feeling, just a lot of stress and uncertainty around that, as a lot of people were feeling that way. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we felt like we could control were our finances. And, Stephanie and I, for probably about a year or two before that, had really kind of dug into our finances, learned about financial independence, learned about investing. But we wanted to take that information that we learned and we wanted to share it out with our girlfriends and teach them how to take control over their finances and hopefully find financial freedom for themselves. Because you don't know what the future is going to hold. And even whether the election goes in your favor or doesn't, it kind of almost it matters. It does matter, but there isn't a lot that you can control regardless. And so we felt like the more control we could have over our finances and the more we could help our friends find that same level of control and growth, the better we would all be in the long run. And so that's kind of how we got started. And so we thought it was like appropriate to touch base on the election tonight.
Right. And I always call myself a, self-declared control freak. And, after the 2016 election, I really felt not in control. I did what I could as a citizen and I voted and, I sometimes it comes to your favor and sometimes it doesn't. And beyond that, there isn't a lot that you can do that's going to directly impact you. Like certainly voting is absolutely the way to impact change. There's other ways as well, but voting is literally the easiest way that you can try to do that. And even when you vote and it doesn't go into your favor, you think, okay, well, what's next? And that's how I felt in 2016. I was like, okay, what's next for me? Because I can't control what the government does and doesn't do, but I can control what I do and I can control how I react to things. And so that was the time I really decided to be proactive with my finances. That was the time I decided, okay, no more just floating along and, saving a little bit here and there enough to like have vacations and pay my bills. But I wanted to know that I had a sense of security that was my own and not reliant on an employer or, some other entity that I had no control over. I can control my own actions. I can control how much I spend. I can control how much I save, and nobody can take that away from me. And even how much I earn, no one can take that away from me. It's my decision on what I want to do for that. And so that's another thing that we really wanted to discuss with everyone tonight. Hang on to what is within your control. Certainly, we don't know really what's going to happen with this year's election. Things are looking one way, but as we've seen, it can flip at any moment, so we're still kind of in that gray area right now and just waiting to get the final results in. But in the meantime, instead of spiraling down that hole of like the what ifs, spiral down the what can I do hole, what are my options, and focus on what is within your control. And that will really start to bring things back to you and ground you. And that was so important for me in 2016. And look where it's led me since then.
Yeah.
So, despite, you kind of have this mental back and forth of like, oh no, and it's like, I'm okay. No, you're not, you have this back and forth going on. But that's the thing, is that you still just try to ground yourself, try to come back to reality, try to focus on really what you can control, and then just, hope for the best for the rest,
Yeah, absolutely. And so we found, Steph and I were talking about this week's episode and sort of, how do we prepare? How do we talk about, this election? We were preparing for this days before the election. And obviously we didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but we knew that there were a few things that we could share with you all, our audience, in terms of how to stay sort of focused on your goals and how to stay calm and steady during, times of uncertainty. And it can be uncertainty because you don't know who the president is going to be, and we might not know for a little while. It could be times of uncertainty because, we're in the middle of the pandemic. These crazy chaotic times are going to continue arising throughout our lives, for the rest of our lives. And so it's how we handle these times, especially when it comes to our finances, that makes that really makes a difference. And so one of the things that Stephanie and I found has worked really well for us is being consistent and having a plan and sticking to your plan. Those things are very key and very fundamental to your financial success, your success in achieving your goals. If you've listened to us at all, if you joined our Winenance workshop on 401ks, you hear us talk, or just you've heard us talking about investing in general, consistency is probably it's probably like the biggest key to success with investing and with your financial goals. It's also probably the biggest key to success with any of your goals, whatever you're trying to achieve in your life. And so, no matter what the markets do today, what they do tomorrow, what they do, the rest of this week or the next month and so on, stay consistent. If what you've been doing with your finances is, you're contributing to your 401k every pay period, and you throw in your, $250 into your IRA every 2 weeks or whatever, continue doing that. So long as your basic expenses and everything have been consistent, your income has been consistent as well, then stay consistent with your finances, stay consistent with your financial plan. You might readjust your goals based off of, what's going on, especially a lot of people, obviously, the election, it looks like it's going to be in Biden's favor, but for a lot of people, they were concerned that, Trump might get reelected, and, we're looking, okay, how do I leave the country? And if that's what feels right for them, that's okay. It's okay to readjust your plan as long as you are working with the plan.
Right. And I think that's the key, is to be proactive and not reactive. And that really kind of spins off of what you're talking about. There's so many people that might see how either the markets react or how the election goes and just say, well, that's it, I'm leaving the country, And that's fine, but let that be your plan, not just a response. Think it through, think about the long run. What does that really mean for you, or you and your family, especially if it's beyond just you, if you have a spouse or children or whatnot. You gotta think about this long term. So I think that's the key, is that you have this plan, and hopefully you've developed this plan over the past months or years, however long it's been, or maybe you're in the process of developing it now. Certainly you want to take current events into account, but also take into account how much they really will directly impact you. Be realistic about it. Be realistic about what your income situation is. Will anything impact your ability to earn an income? Will anything impact your ability to pay your bills? Will anything impact your ability to save the amount of money that you want to save? Mm-hmm. So those are the things you really want to focus on. Again, those are the things that are within your control. And if you feel like anything is not, then, anything of those items are not within your control, then determine how to develop a strategy to make them within your control. If you're uncertain about your income, then what can you do to make it more secure for you and stabilize it for yourself? Maybe that means a discussion with your boss so that okay, yeah, my position's good, or okay. Maybe that means pulling in additional sources of income, whether that means selling things on Craigslist or eBay or wherever. Maybe that means starting a side hustle of some sort, doing Uber deliveries or whatever it might be. There's so many options out there now. I think that's one of the benefits of our current society and the world we're living in right now, is that there's so many different ways to build other streams of income. And that's kind of our next topic. We're flying through them tonight, is broadening your income streams. So that's something that I've struggled with a little bit, because I've always had a single source of income. Basically, I worked multiple jobs before when we were like in college, and you had the energy and time to do that. But I think about that now, and I'm like, oh my God, trying to work like a full-time job and a part-time job and doing all this, like sometimes you just don't have the energy or the time, especially if you have a family and kids that you have to take care of and whatnot. It's hard to figure out, even with Winenance, it's still a lot of work for us to put up this lovely show and everything and all of our content for you each week. But, it's a passion. I do it because I love it. And yes, hopefully this becomes more of an income stream for us. But that's the thing I think about too, is our employers, our companies that we all work for, they all have multiple streams of income. Yes. You don't have a single customer coming into Starbucks every day just buying 10,000 cups of coffee. No, you have multiple streams of income. They sell merchandise, they sell coffee, they sell, whatever else they do. They have partnerships, they have affiliates, like all our companies, you have multiple customers, multiple programs, multiple projects. There's not a single source of income. So why, as people who are working, trying to make income and trying to earn money, having a single source of income, it doesn't make sense to do that. Because the thing is, if one customer decides to not renew a contract with you, in your business, or, you lose a customer because of something else that happens, then that shouldn't be the end of your company. That's a poor business model. But if you say, well, yeah, that impacted us a little bit to lose this client or whatnot, but we'll recover because we also have X, Y, and Z all, over here in our other pocket, or on the other side, then that's a far better business model. So we should all think about it like that. We all are our own businesses. Even if you aren't technically running a business, you as a person are a business, and you need to think about your finances in that way, that, if I lose my job, I'm going to be okay because I have my emergency fund as an emergency source of income. I have this other, side gig going on that's bringing in income. I have investments, that are bringing in income. that you need to determine how you can reasonably create other sources of income, and then create your plan for that and go for it. And I think that's really one of the best ways to, create security in these insecure times, because I really feel like that's where a lot of the comments and things that I've been seeing lately are coming from. It's just this sense of insecurity. We don't know what the future holds for us, and people are afraid to make a leap or a change, even if it's not a leap, just a change. And people are afraid to make that change. And I fully can understand that as somebody who loves stability and security and whatnot. I can definitely understand how change can be scary. But again, when you create this broad plan that gives you so many avenues of success rather than failure, it makes it feel so much more secure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I'm somebody who has multiple streams of income. Obviously, you and I both invest, Stephanie. So that's one side stream of income. And we always talk about how investing is pretty much the only true form of passive income, because it's truly, you set up your money, you can automate it, and then your money does the work for you. You are literally making money while you sleep and making money while you're working and doing other things when you're investing. But outside of that, you can sell clothes on Poshmark, or, sell stuff that you have in your house on eBay, just things like that to find, it doesn't have to be like a second job or even a full side hustle. It can just be little things like that you can pick up here and there when you want to generate a little bit of extra income, and then making sure that, like Stephanie said, that you have a plan for that income, that you're putting it towards something that helps you achieve your financial goals. You touched on something that I think brings us to our next point is your emergency fund. This year, 2020, and especially, has demonstrated the importance and the necessity of an emergency fund. Everybody needs it. I don't care if you make $1 million a year, you need an emergency fund, because you don't know if something happens and you are suddenly parting ways with your income unexpectedly. You need to have a backup plan. And I've talked about this before, that for me, an emergency fund is obviously I have a set amount of money that I want to have that I can fund, for me, it's 6 months of living expenses. But for me, it's the peace of mind of knowing that if I were to lose my job, or if something happened and I couldn't work any longer, or I couldn't work for a temporary amount of time, that I've got 6 months of living expenses in the bank. And I know that I am free from the stress and worry of how I'm going to provide for myself and my family during those 6 months, so that I can land on my 2 feet, and I can pick something, or hopefully find something that I really want to do and not have to feel forced into it. And so, during these times of uncertainty, that is something that I feel so good about and confident about, is the fact that I have a fully funded emergency fund. And in fact, I'm considering, increasing it even more. I'm like, all right, how can I level this up even more?
Right. And that's actually exactly what I did back in March when the pandemic hit the United States and everybody was quarantined. That's the first thing I did was I looked at my emergency fund. I recalculated my absolute baseline budget. Like, what are all the things we could cut out if, push came to shove, and what were the absolute necessary expenses that we would need to pay every month. And I said, okay, we're at the 6 month mark. So that's good. If really stuff hit the fan, then, we would be good for 6 months, on the bare bones. But I also still was like, okay, this is the most uncertain I've ever felt about things, in the world. Cause it wasn't like it was just me, my company had layoffs or whatever. No, this is across the world. So, who knew how long everything was going to go on for? So I really started thinking about it too. And I started increasing my emergency fund. So I don't know if I'm going to quite go up to, a year's worth of expenses. Cause I feel like that's also, there's this big debate about having a large emergency fund and whether that's really useful to your financial goals or not, and investing that money instead of saving it or whatnot beyond that 3 to 6 month mark. But again, as a person who loves security, sometimes to me, that, as much as I love to optimize, I also love security more.
Yeah.
So, I am slowly increasing my emergency fund, my cash on hand emergency fund, but not so much that I feel like I'm losing out on the benefit of investing in the market. So, I'm basically adding a few $100s to it each month. And, over the course of however many more months or years, it will hopefully get up to that, maybe year mark. I'll see. But, I still want to increase it a little bit each month, just because it gives me that sense of peace and security.
Yeah.
And, I love that feeling.
I think that's a really good point. It gives you a sense of peace, and that's ultimately what your emergency fund should do. That's really what your financial goals should do for you too. Whether it is, you know, increasing your emergency fund, or for those of us in the financial independence community, there's something known as FU money, which is it's a number that's obviously specific to every single person, but it's having enough money where if you wanted to leave your job, or if you wanted to take a temporary, hiatus, or if you wanted to, just if you wanted to make some kind of lifestyle shift, you're not fully financially independent yet, or you don't have to work any longer, but you've got a little bit of a nest egg, and so that's like the next level up from an emergency fund. I think something else that you kind of touched on is, that you continue to make your planned contributions to your investments. And I've done the same thing. And during times like this, we talked about consistency at the top of the show, and how important that is. And even if the markets could tank tomorrow, we have no idea how they're going to react to the election tomorrow. They could tank, or they could go up, they could increase. Today was actually a good day for the markets. The markets reacted well for, when Biden started getting some of these swing states, it started reacting really well. Uber was one of the companies that had, and actually just the gig economy in general, it was on the, what was it, Prop 22 on the ballot in California. And while my personal take on it was that, the voters voted not in the interest of gig workers, and I personally am supportive of those gig workers. If you are an investor in Uber, if you're an investor in these gig economy, if you're an investor in the tech sector, then your investments did very well today. So staying with those planned contributions, you don't know if the market is going to react negatively tomorrow, but you still need to stay the course. And that is one of the biggest things. I mean, talked about this at the top of the hour, but that really is, I think, the biggest contributing factor to our success as investors is staying the course, continuing to buy low. Don't sell low and buy high. You want to buy low and sell high. And so the first part of that is buying low. And so if the market is down, you still continue to buy.
Right. And I know, like I said, where I would see a lot of people asking if they should, like, they planned to invest. So they already had a chunk of money that they were going to invest, but they weren't sure if they should wait until before, after the election, or after the dust settles, even after the election. And I also understand that where if you have available cash on hand that you really aren't sure about, and you do want to wait till the dust settles, then that's totally fine as well. If you want to hold on to that money for a little bit longer and kind of see how things play out, then that's fine. But also understand your risks. And that could also mean that the markets could skyrocket once a decision's finally made in either direction. The markets could skyrocket, and now you've missed, this quote low period, even though it's really not that low. It's still, record highs compared to even a year ago. So, even though the markets have been unstable over the past, couple of weeks, it's still pretty high. So that's the thing, is that you do have a risk of holding onto that money and missing a lower period than if you had just invested now. But again, you need to go with what you feel comfortable with. And if having that money in your pocket today gives you a better sense of security, then hold on to it and wait until after January to see how things go, or after February, or however long you want to wait. Or if you just want to, again, stay consistent and say, I believe in my plan. I believe in what, how the markets are going to behave in the long run. I'm a long-term investor. I know things will eventually even out and will rise. Then, go for it, stick with it. And that's actually what Maria and I are doing. We're contributing to our 401ks and our IRAs. We're, sticking with our investment plans that we had before yesterday, and that we've had for all year. Unless something catastrophic happens to our income streams, I absolutely plan to continue to invest just as we always have. So again, we don't know what the future brings, but again, whatever your plan is, just try to be consistent with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And something else that I think is really important that probably doesn't get talked about enough in the personal finance space is taking care of your mental health, especially during these uncertain times, especially during chaotic times. That has been, I think, one of the biggest lessons that hopefully a lot of us have learned coming out of 2020, just of everything that's been going on this year. Our mental health is of peak importance, of the
Yeah.
most utmost importance. And so obviously that is very personal to every person. How you do self-care, how you take care of your mental health, how you disconnect is obviously different from some people than others. I'm somebody who my body has to tell me that I'm stressed out. Like my body has to like physically start shutting itself
Yeah.
down, because mentally I'll just keep going, going, going. And I just, I kind of get into this like survivalist mentality, like I can do it all. My body's just like, Marie, no, slow down. You can't do it all. And I'm trying to be more conscientious of that before I get to that point, because I notice that for me, it takes me a long time to really recover from that. I need a lot of rest, a lot of like decompression in order to kind of recover back from that. And then I tend to go back into my same old patterns. And so what I'm trying to do in 2020 is just be more conscientious of, when my shoulders start, that's like always a key sign for me, to kind of, okay, you need to get up and stretch and relax and walk away from your computer, walk away from the screens. I'm a very online person. I'm
Put
deep
down the
into
social media.
put down the social media, especially with the election. I mean, and everybody's doom scrolling is like a thing that
Oh my
everybody's
God, I know. They come up with
doing.
names for everything now. Seriously.
There are names for everything now. And I definitely am guilty of the doom scrolling and trying, it's just looking for that next stimulus hit for my mind. And so like meditating is something that I started doing earlier this year and I haven't been consistent with lately. And I've been thinking I need to get back into that routine of, just doing like 15 minutes of meditation in the morning, because it really does help me like set myself up for the day and feel just more relaxed throughout the rest of the day. It helps me be more present and more focused. And then that helps me in turn stay a calm, confident investor. It helps me focus on my goals, both my financial goals, my life goals, instead of reacting to what I'm seeing on social media all day and trying to create new plans based off of something that I just saw 5 seconds ago.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I mean, we've talked about this before, but my stress likes to manifest physically. And, anyone who's known me for years knows, like, when I was planning my wedding, I was so stressed that literally my hair started falling out. Like the whole back of my head was bald and I had to wear my hair down. I wanted to do a nice updo for my wedding and I couldn't, because like the whole back half of my head was literally bald. And it took a while for my hair to grow back and like my body to just recover to its normal stress levels and everything. And that actually started happening recently last year as well. I started losing my hair again because I was just so stressed at work and, just life and whatever. And I didn't even think I felt it. Like, it's so weird how stress works, where it creeps up on you so slowly that the feeling of it becomes your new normal. And until you are brought out of it or made aware of it, you really don't realize how stressed you are. And at that time, last year, when I started losing my hair again, I did not realize how stressed I was until I work out regularly. Like, I work out almost every single day, and I had missed 2 workouts in a row. And I was in the middle, I finally like worked out again, and I was in the middle of stretching, and I just felt my body being like, oh, like, like that calm that comes over it. And I was like, oh my God, this feeling I've had for the past couple of days has been stress. And the thing was that the workouts were helping, they helped me immensely, decompress and literally stretch my body, stretch my mind. Like, it just helps me calm myself. And when I wasn't doing it, I could really feel how stressed I was. And that's when it finally hit me like, oh, and that's why I'm losing my hair. And that's why I feel the way I do. And so, a lot of times, depending on what the stressors are, it's hard to get rid of. So obviously, in the case of current, or if you're stressed about the election and the economy and, the pandemic, these aren't things that you can just get rid of, unfortunately. You can't remove them from your life. They are part of our lives, if you're part of this society, unfortunately. But you can do things to care for yourself. I almost hate the term self-care now, because it's so overused in like a way where it's like, go shopping for yourself, have a latte. And I'm like, fine, if that's what calms you. But I think
Yeah.
the important thing is you have to find self-care internally, because you
Yes.
really will not be able to
Yeah.
remove that mental block and that emotional block that you get when you start to reach certain stress levels, and unless you deal with it internally. So yes, having a nice glass of wine on a lovely fall evening on your deck with a fire pit or something sounds lovely.
That is self-care.
That is self-care. But again, if it's like
Yes.
you're doing that while you're scrolling on Facebook and looking at all the
Yes,
election
you're
tweets
right.
and
That's
whatever,
not
then no,
self-care.
that's not self-care. Like, it's a
Yeah.
nice setting, but you're not really taking care of yourself. And so something that I've actually found that I really like is float therapy. And so I started doing it last year after our mom passed away, and my husband had suggested it to me. One of his coworkers had actually done it after his brother passed away, I believe. And it just kind of helps you literally mentally decompress. Like, you sit in this room and it's a big tub, like essentially like a giant, like single person tub. And it's, the water is like filled with Epsom salt. So you float, you're really buoyant. The water temperature is almost at body temperature, like a little bit warmer than body temperature. So you really are like, you just feel like you're floating in the air. The air is warm, the lights are off, there's no sound. They call it like a sensory deprivation tank or chamber as well. And so literally all it is like you and your breath and like your thoughts. Like, you can hear yourself breathe, and that's it. But after 20, 30 minutes, you really do start to just let loose. Like, you kind of go into your own mental world, you start thinking through things. But it's very relaxing, and it's amazing how when you come out of it, you feel like you had a massage, but you actually didn't. It was just you in there, But your muscles are so relaxed, your mind is so relaxed that you're like, you know what, this is going to be okay. And so we've started doing that. I actually have another appointment this weekend for it, and I'm so looking forward to it. I feel like after this past week, we all could use some legitimate self-care and mental decompression. So I'm looking forward to doing that again.
You reminded me, because you had gotten me the float therapy, actually for me and Jeff, for I think Christmas last year. You had gotten us the float therapy, and I did it, and it was very relaxing. It was everything you said. The only thing for me was that the water was too cold for me, because it's supposed to be like around body temperature, and I'm chronically cold. I take
I need to crank this up. I need a hot tub.
I truly, I mean, when I take a bath, like, I pour in boiling water into the bathtub. Like, I put it all the way on hot, and then I add, I know, I sound like a lunatic. I know.
The flesh is like just searing as you get in the tub.
I wouldn't recommend it for other people. But the float therapy, it was hard for me to fully relax because I was so focused on how cold I was. But because where the place that Jeff and I went to, it was only one tank at a time. So Jeff went first, and I ended up doing a guided meditation at the spa. They do like a guided meditation. And for me, that was as relaxing as a massage. It was like almost an hour long, and I really didn't, it was the first time I had ever done meditation. And the woman who did it, she was in the room, like, basically like, it was like storytelling almost. And I thought I was not going to be able to focus. Not focus, rather, like, I didn't know. I thought I was going to be like, oh, I got to do this. I got to thinking about my to-do list. And I ended up, like, I was very focused on the story. I was envisioning everything she was talking about. It was so relaxing for me. I was like, I need to do this again. And, I've talked about a few minutes ago about, doing my own meditation in the mornings, but having that guided meditation, where you're like in a room, a massage room, basically on a massage table, and somebody is like walking you through the story. For me, and mentally, it was very cathartic, and it was exactly like the relaxation that I needed. So, I think with both of our examples, find something that works for you and try something that you haven't tried before either, because you had not tried the floating therapy before and you love it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And I was so skeptical of it in the beginning. I was like, okay. And even when like you first get in it, you kind of are like laying there like, okay, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
But after like a little while, you just kind of like slow your breathing, start just thinking, like, and try to clear your mind. And so definitely to anyone who wants to try it, give it past the first 10 minutes, but just Believe in the process. Trust the process.
Trust the process.
Yes.
And I think that kind of takes us to the last point we wanted to bring up tonight was like, with the election, we don't know, there just is so much uncertainty. And so find the good in your life, find something good to focus on, especially whether it can be tied to your financial goals, but it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to your financial goals. Just if there is something in your life that you wanted to try, or you've been wanting to do, whether it's a hobby or whatever the case is, maybe it's a new recipe, whatever it is, find something good to focus on. There's going to be a lot of chaos the next couple of days and weeks. That's just going to be a fact. I mean,
Right.
I'm not going to beat around the bush and pretend that like we're living in normal times. We're not. And as the results look worse and worse for Trump, it's just going to become more and more chaotic, and everybody's going to be on social media saying all kinds of crazy stuff. And so this is really like, find the good in your life. So at the top of the hour, Steph and I talked about how we started doing Winance nights with our girlfriends as a reaction to the 2016 election, wanting to help our friends find financial freedom so that they could have control over their finances. Well, something else that I did was I actually started learning calligraphy at that time. And so a lot of you guys know that I have a calligraphy side business that I've developed over the past few years, but that was really when I first started doing calligraphy. And I remember coming home from like the Women's March and being on social media, and my husband was like, you have to get off of social media and you have to stop, and he was right. I was too in the rabbit hole of like the craziness. And I needed to find like a creative outlet. I needed to channel this mental energy into something else. And so for me, I found calligraphy. I had tried it out like, off and on throughout the years, but I really wanted to like make a conscious effort to learn it. And it brings me so much like peace and joy and happiness. Like it's something that I do after work to like relieve stress. Even when I'm working on client projects, I do find that it's still a stress relieving hobby for me. And I love doing it. And so that is the good in my life that I look forward to. And I would say whatever that good thing is, make sure that it's something that always feels good when you do it. You don't want to do it, and then even if you find a way to make money off of it, you still need to, find a way that it feels good and doesn't feel like more work.
Right. You want it to become an obligation for you, where
Yes,
you feel like you just
exactly.
have to do it, but definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story. I mean, really, like you said, like after the 2016 election, we needed something. And I'm so glad, obviously, that Winance is what came out of it. That was the greatness for us of the 2016
Yeah.
election, was that we found a path to our financial independence. We figured out what we want to do, and then how we can bring this to the people around us and to our community. And I'm so looking forward to how this continues in the future for us, because it's just grown exponentially. Like even after the pandemic hit, I feel like that's when Winance really took off, which is so ironic, because in the midst of like the world shutting down, we were coming
we
up.
had more time. We
really
were at
did,
home
yeah.
and had a little bit more time to devote towards it.
I know. I had just posted something the other day, and I'm like, for someone who can't go anywhere, I have a lot going on right now.
I know. I feel the same way too. I miss being out in the world with other people. We've talked about this. Like I'm an extrovert, and it's not enough to just do like these Zoom things. Like I need to be like with people and feel the energy. And that's been hard for me, but having other things to focus my time and energy on is definitely one of the ways I've been able to cope this year. So even when I get kind of squirrely, I've got like, something to channel myself into. Well, I hope this was a helpful conversation for everyone. As the results of the election continue to unfold, I don't even know, there could be some updates that have happened in the last 40 minutes that we don't know about, but, just try to focus on your financial goals, your life goals, lean into those, focus on what makes you feel good, take care of your mental health, stay consistent, all these things that we talked about tonight. Consider increasing your emergency fund. Consider, stay the course with your financial goals and with investing, because we just don't know what the outcome is going to bring. We don't, I mean, I'm going to say something a little controversial, but I don't even know, like, we don't know if Trump is going to retaliate, and will the markets react to that retaliation? We don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, we have to sort of expect the unexpected, and focus on those things that you can control. And so I hope this conversation was helpful for those of you watching tonight, and that you learned something good, or if you're listening to the podcast version, that that you learned something good and helpful and beneficial to you.
Yes, definitely.
So,
And thank you everyone for, tuning in tonight. I know everyone, if you're anything like us, you stayed up late last night and you're probably exhausted and are probably exhausted from hearing about election stuff. So hopefully this didn't, spin too much on it either.
yeah, I think this was a positive conversation about the
Yes,
election. I think,
I think
obviously
so.
we have a point of view, we're not going to pretend that we don't, but I think this was like a more uplifting conversation as opposed to a lot of the other stuff you might be
Yes.
seeing in the news and on Facebook and whatnot. So
Well, we want everyone to take care of themselves.
Yes.
Again, focus on you, focus on your family, all the good in your life, and things will work out.
Yep. So just a quick reminder before we log off tonight is that go ahead and click the like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube so that you can get notified when we go live again. We are also, we come in podcast form. So if you like the audio version better, you can subscribe to the Winenance podcast. We are on Spotify and Apple. And you can find us on our website at winancefi.com. And of course, if you have any questions, whether about the election or just, kind of how to stay calm during these times, reach out to Stephanie and I. You can find us on all the social media channels on our website. And we'd be more than happy to help. And because we want to make sure that everybody is able to find financial freedom and find something good in life that feels good to you that you can focus on. That's really why we're doing all of this. Why we even save for financial goals is to have something good in life and live our lives to the fullest, live in more intentional lives, like we say at the top of the show. So thank you all so much for joining, and we will see you guys next week for Winance Wednesday.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.